Hello and welcome to the Road to National series. Within this series, I'm going to try and qualify and compete in the British National Powerlifting Championships within Raw Powerlifting. Now, each episode within this series is going to show you some aspect of my diet, my lifestyle, but mainly my training leading up to try and compete. And there's going to be some sort of educational topic to go alongside this. So I'm going to cover things like my programming and how I'd advise you program, the max effort method, the dynamic effort method, why I utilize those methodologies, how I would advise you program accessories, how intensely you should be training your accessories, how much volume I'd advise, as well as specific things like pieces of equipment for a home gym if you're thinking of building that, what you should do whether you're injured or sick or if you're going on holiday, how to manage that. There's going to be a wide array of topics that I'm going to cover, and if you think of any topic that you want me to cover, comment it down below. But without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so today I'm taking you through an upper max workout, and later I'll be talking to you about programming. But first things first, this is me building up to my upper max variation for the day. It is a banded close grip bench press. Here I'm going for 90 kilos, and there's a bit of a sticky point in the middle, but I managed to push through. Honestly, it felt quite easy, so I decided to go for 100. I've never actually done a close grip with this much band tension before. I thought I should be able to hit 100, but as you can see, unfortunately, I don't manage to make it. Now, if you can see my breath blowing out, it is exceptionally cold at the moment. The ground is all filled with snow, so I think the bands had actually frozen a bit and were a bit seized up. So I think that might have been what caused me to fail, that the band tension was actually higher than expected. Not a great way to start the new year or this series, but what can you do? Just have to move on. You definitely don't want to be regularly failing on max effort variations, and I usually don't. This is just a rare occasion. So on to accessories. I started off here with overhead Swiss bar extensions. I find these hit the triceps very effectively, particularly around the elbows, and really help my lockout power. Then I go on to doing wide mag grip lat pull downs, then chest press, and then cable crunches. So whilst these accessories are playing, I'm going to tell you about programming. So the style of program that I do is called the conjugate training system. And what the conjugate system basically means is that you train all of the different components of strength in conjunction with one another. So compared to normal strength training, what people regularly do is they stick to the normal movements of their sport. So in powerlifting, you would be doing the squat, the bench, and the deadlift regularly. You'd start with high volume, high rep and set work, and over time you would build up the weight, decrease the reps and sets and the volume, and peak your strength going into a competition. However, with the conjugate system, you aim to keep high volume and high intensity and high loads year round, and you do that by training the different types of strength separately but in conjunction with each other year round. So you do the max effort method for top end absolute strength like you just seen me do. I built up to a max effort variation today. On Mondays I do max effort upper variations, then on Tuesdays I do max effort lower, so that's a max effort variation of a squat or a deadlift, and then later on in the week I do dynamic effort variations of the squat, the bench, and the deadlift as well. That's the second type of strength you try to train within the conjugate system, dynamic effort, which is moving moderate weights as fast as you can, trying to teach explosive strength so that you can blast weights up, and that transfers back over to your powerlifting. And the final method that you use is the repetition method. So as you're seeing me do now, you do accessories, basic sort of bodybuilding style training, single joint / single muscle accessories to try and build up the individual muscles or joint action. So it could be something like hip extension specifically, or like elbow extension or knee extension, or it could be like specifically targeting the chest. So onto my specific program. What I have is, like I've said, a 5-day per week split. This is the split, an upper max, then a lower max, then rest, then lower dynamic, upper dynamic, lower dynamic. The first lower dynamic, if it's a squat dynamic, the second one will be a deadlift dynamic, and vice versa. They swap every 4-week waves. The primary max effort guide looks like this. So I'll build up at least 95% 1 rep max in some sort of squat, bench and deadlift variation. This is very basic like you've seen, but the important part to take note of here is that that it is a squat, then a deadlift, then a squat in the first 4 weeks of my cycle, and then a deadlift, squat, deadlift in the second 4-week wave of my cycle. And these are all of the different max effort variations that I can use. Like it says at the bottom of the sheet, you can combine the variations. So this week I combined a close grip press with a banded press. You can look through them and see all the different variations of the squat, bench and deadlift I use for max effort, and I also use these for dynamic effort. So speaking of dynamic effort, my program later on in the week for dynamic effort looks like this. Now this is the dynamic effort guide. It looks a bit complicated, but the main thing you need to know is that I just over a 3-week cycle build up from 5 sets of 5 to 4 sets of 5 to 3 sets of 5 of 80%, then 85% and then 90% of my 1 rep max in a squat, bench or deadlift variation. But if those percentages seem very high and you're thinking there's no way I could get 3 sets of 5 at 90% of my 1 rep max, fear not, neither could I. The reason that this is possible is because a lot of that total percentage 1 rep max comes from accommodating resistance. So for me, I use bands, and the band tension you measure at the top of the band. So basically what you do is stretch the band to the top of your range of motion, stand on a set of scales and see how much increases your weight by, and you can work out how much the band tension is. So what I do is I pick a variation of the squat, bench or deadlift for my dynamic, and then I pick the bands where the accommodating resistance from them is between 40 and 50% of my 1 rep max in that variation. So if I was doing close grip dynamic effort for my 4-week wave and I used the bands that were 45% of my close grip 1 rep max, then I would just have to find 35% bar weight to make the 80% I need on week 1. Then I would use 40% bar weight to find the 85% I need, and then I would use 45% bar weight to create the 90% total 1 rep max for the programming. So that might sound a bit complicated. You can pause it and rewatch if you're confused, and later on in the week in episode 3 I'm going to cover dynamic effort more, so stick around to that. You'll also see me doing my dynamic effort, so you can actually see what I'm talking about in 2 episodes time. Next episode, by the way, I'm focusing on the max effort more and going into more detail with that. The final part of the programming puzzle is accessories. So in my plan I do 4 accessories per day. Because there are only 2 upper days, I do 3 sets of the 4 accessories on each of the upper days, and that comes to 24 total sets of accessories per week. And then because I have 3 days of lower accessories, I only do 2 sets per accessory on each of the days, and that then means that it also comes out to 24 sets of lower accessories per week. Now, if you're looking at these lower accessory groups and thinking, what does a leg push mean or a hip hinge? I have different groupings for the accessories. So these are the accessory groupings. You can rifle through these. As you can see, miscellaneous upper applies to chest exercises, shoulder exercises, bicep exercises, and grip exercises, depending on the rest of the program. There's all the different caveats at the top, and you can read through them if you want to pause the video. But basically, I just program one of these groups, and then I pick what exact exercise I want to do on the day, and I'll generally keep that accessory in for about 6 to 8 weeks. I'll keep doing the same one. I know what my records on each accessory are, and it's basic progressive overload. I just try and beat it the next session. So that is how I program my accessories. That is the most of it. As you might have seen at the top, it also says GPP days on Wednesdays and Sunday. GPP just stands for General Physical Preparedness. So I try to do some other athletic things on those days doing other sports. So I have friends who are like into squash, and I'll go along and play with them. I'm not very good, but it forces me to use more of my athleticism and develop my overall physical preparedness. I think this is often neglected in strength sports and powerlifting in particular. People are very static and undynamic, but if you go and do other sports, it increases your overall athleticism and helps develop you as an athlete in total. So coming back to today's workout, I'm finally on to the cable crunches. I hate these with a burning passion. If I'm completely honest, I have skipped abs pretty much for the whole of 2025. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this series, is to make myself more accountable, because I know you guys are watching. I'm actually going to do them. So that is it for today's video. I hope you did in fact enjoy the video. If you did, drop it a like, drop it a comment, subscribe, click the bell, all of that good stuff. If you claim that you like training abs, you are absolutely lying. Look at me there. I am not having a good time. Anyway, thank you very much for watching and have a great day.